The following podcast may contain adults. It may contain adults.
It does not contain adults.
It does not contain adults.
There are no adults here.
The following podcast may contain adult language and an abundance of salt. So
come out to the coast. We'll get together, have a few laughs.
we're talking Die Hard.
That was really good, guys.
That was really good.
Thanks.
Teamwork.
A good
Fist bump.
collaboration.
Welcome back to another episode of the Salty Nerd Podcast. I'm your host, the Salty Nerd. In today's episode, we are going to be discussing the perfection of the Die Hard Trilogy, 1, 2, and 3, Die Harder, and Die Hard with a Vengeance. So get ready for that because we're going to have a ton of fun. I am joined, as always, by my fantastic panel of nerds, starting with Matthew Kadish, the person who chose these movies.
Yippee-ki-yay, melon farmer.
There we go.
Wow.
All right.
That was what they used instead of MFer in the TV edits, if you're old enough to remember that.
Nice.
He called Hans Gruber a melon farmer.
Nice. Melon farmer.
Dare you?
I'm gonna keip that. That's
You
good.
lint liquor.
In Die Hard 2, it was Mr. Falcon.
Nice.
Yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon.
That's so dumb.
That's fun though. I'm also joined by the ambassador of estrogen, Jude.
Oh, hello. Sorry.
My bad.
I thought you were going to Vader, gulping my tea. Hello.
Hello. I'm also joined by the barbarian space Viking, Matthew Vader.
What's up?
Hey, you guys ready to talk about these movies?
Yeah.
It's gonna be cool. All right, guys.
Born ready. I'm so happy today.
I am too.
Aw.
This is exciting.
So like, for December, I insisted that we do like a Christmas week, and nothing embodies a Christmas movie better than Die Hard.
You are correct, sir. And also, I hate Christmas, so this is the only one that I find acceptable.
Humbug to you
Yes,
too.
exactly.
Jeez.
Alex the Scrooge over here.
Come out swinging.
I am.
I hate goodwill towards men and jolly cheer.
Yeah, I'm so distracted. Okay, sorry.
For those of you who don't know, we got a new studio TV and we're playing Die Hard as we're doing the podcast.
Alex cannot stop
Alex and
watching.
Vader keep just watching the movie instead of participating.
He's like, the following podcast may... And his face drifts off towards the TV. This is a terrible purchase.
It's just so good. It's just so good. All right, guys.
This is what it was like when we used to film the show
Yeah.
at your house because you'd have the big screen on behind you.
Yeah.
But it was in front of me. So it was like, shush, I'm watching the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, shut up.
Ooh, this
Can
is
you
a good
guys
part.
keep it
No, stop talking. This is a good scene.
Stop the podcast for a second.
Wow, look at her 80s hair. That is awesome.
All the shoulder pads were on point.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Look at the height of that hair.
Oh, yeah.
All right, guys.
God, that gets me going.
Before we get going, let's listen to a quick sponsor.
You know what this is?
A commercial?
Right, and you know what that means.
Time for a snack?
Wrong. I want you to do some heart-healthy exercise. Yes, you! Try some seated leg extensions right now. Just lift each leg up and extend it straight, one at a time, 6 to 8 times.
I can do that.
Yes, you can. Remember, every commercial is a chance to sneak in heart-healthy activity. Visit findexerciseanywhere.com and speak with your doctor to learn more about the risks of heart failure.
Amazon Prime members now get free grocery delivery with a minimum order. You'll get your groceries with 2-hour delivery. So in that time, you can use photo filters to imagine what you would look like with bangs. But don't do it. Just imagine. Meditate. Notice your body. Feel your breath. Am I doing this right? Get lost in a Wikipedia spiral. How do flowers propagate? Whatever it is you're doing with your time, your shopper will be carefully picking out your favorite groceries while providing contactless delivery to your door. Free 2-hour grocery delivery, now with Prime.
All right, guys, let's get started by talking about the first Die Hard movie starring Bruce Willis.
Before we get into it, I wanted to show you guys this.
Oh, is this the book that it's...
Yes.
Okay, Nothing Lasts Forever by Roderick Thorpe.
Back when it was out of print, I was such a Die Hard fan that I tracked down a out-of-print copy of Nothing Lasts Forever by Roderick Thorpe, which is the book that the Die Hard movie was based on.
Which is a sequel, actually.
Yes, it's a sequel to the novel The Detective, which was also made into a movie starring Frank Sinatra back in the 60s.
Oh, boy. Nice. Author of The Detective.
Yeah,
You wanna see it?
I know Vader doesn't read, but I wanted to show you guys.
That's pretty cool.
What is this thing?
It's a paper Kindle.
It has like
No
And
pictures.
it's got a picture on the front.
There's no word bubbles.
It's smaller. It's shorter than I expected it to be. That's cool.
Yeah, but
It's a pretty easy read then?
It's a quite different story from the movie. So, like in this book, basically, it's an oil company that has the building in it, and it's eco-terrorists that take it over.
Oh, okay.
And instead of the detective's estranged wife, it's his daughter. And spoiler alert: at the end of the book, when he like shoots the Hans Gruber character and he falls out the window, the Hans Gruber character takes the daughter with him, and so the daughter dies.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
That's a cool book though.
But funny enough,
Kinda wanna read it
like because what's his name? Because Frank Sinatra was the star of The Detective, which was the first book that was turned into a movie, he was contractually obligated to do the sequel. And by the time this what became Die Hard was getting going, it was in the 80s. 60s versus 80s.
Yeah.
So Frank Sinatra was like 73 years old, but
Too old.
they had to offer him the role of John McCain,
Oh wow.
which the character wasn't named John McCain at the time. They actually changed that once Bruce Willis came on board. But Frank Sinatra was basically like, I'm 70, I can't do an action movie.
Yeah.
So luckily he turned it down, and eventually like we got Bruce Willis.
It would have been cool if you did like a cameo as like one of the police detectives or maybe the FBI agent or something. That would have been neat. Have a little Frank Sinatra cameo.
I think by that time Sinatra was just over it.
And he's done with it.
He's
Yeah.
like, I don't want to do any of your stupid movies. Even back when he did movies, like he just did them as an excuse to like hang out with friends and go to saunas and
Yeah.
casinos and stuff.
That was big time back then. Rat Pack stuff.
All I see is Professor Snape being a bad guy.
Oh, I've got my Alan Rickman shirt on too.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, I was hoping you'd
Celebration.
wear that.
Oh, awesome.
I don't know how much you guys know. I love these movies.
I believe it. You've been talking about it for like 3 months now.
With the exception of Die Hard 5, like this series is awesome.
To tell you the truth, I don't think I've seen the newer ones. I may have seen. What's the one with Justin Long?
That's Live Free or Die Hard. That's number 4.
That's the last one I saw.
Yeah, number 5 is A Good Day to Die Hard, and it is terrible.
Oh no. Is that the
is-
one where he goes to Russia?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
yes, it is
I
awful.
don't feel like I'd seen these movies since they first came out.
Really?
Yeah,
That long?
I was never a big Die Hard guy.
Hmm.
I don't know why. Because I
This is
really
like right
like
up your
I
alley.
really like these movies,
Yeah.
but for some reason I just haven't watched these movies.
Well, Jude hadn't seen the second or the third one before.
Oh, really? Oh, I can't wait to talk to you about those. Nice. Jude, you want to?
Did you know that this was Alan Rickman's first feature film?
What?
I did not know this.
It's his first Hollywood feature.
Oh, I did not
and
know
he
that.
knocks it out of the park.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
That was
He-
perfect.
He owns it. Like Hans Gruber, because of Alan Rickman, I would rate him as one of the top movie villains of all time. Like he's up there with Darth Vader in my book.
Wow.
Like he is just like
Wow,
one of
that's
the,
pretty
yeah. He,
praise, sir.
he's one of the best movie villains in cinema history, in my opinion.
Up there with Darth Vader. Wow, that's high. That's.
I disagree.
well, I don't know, man. That's pretty.
Get out of here.
Where would you put Thanos on that list?
Thanos was right.
Yeah, Thanos was a good guy. So.
He's not a villain. That jerk off Tony Stark was the villain. Right on. Jude, do you want to tell us about the first Die Hard movie?
Sure.
All right, hit us with it.
I'm going to start with the budget.
Cool, go ahead.
Okay, so this movie was made for $28 million. What do you think it made at the box office?
Oh, I'm hoping like easy 180 million.
Okay, Vader,
210.
141.
Oh, jeez.
Not bad. Those are
Not bad.
$80 dollars.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah.
This was a huge hit
Yeah.
in the 80s.
I mean, it's iconic. All right, go ahead.
I mean, coming from 28,
Yeah.
to 141,
That's a
jump.
Yeah, that's a good movie.
That's a nice big jump. All right, so this was released in July of 1988. So I don't know if you knew it did not come out at Christmas time. It actually was a summer blockbuster.
1988.
Yeah,
That
it
was
was
a good
it was
year.
originally supposed to come out.
I was born
around
in
Christmas
1988.
time, I think, but they pushed it back.
I graduated from high school in 1988.
Let me tell you about a little ditty called Die Hard.
There we go.
So John McCain is a semi-self-loathing New York cop trying to do his best. And he's visiting his wife, Holly, at the Nakatomi Plaza Christmas party when a group of terrorists take over the building and hold everyone hostage. So the terrorists are led by Hans Bubby Gruber, and they're after $600 million in bonds that are in like the vaults
Yeah.
of the building. So that's what they're really after, but they're using terrorism as like a ruse to distract
It's just a red herring.
It's just a red herring to distract the authorities from what their real goal is. So John McClane's wife, played by Bonnie Bedelia, her name is Holly Gennaro. So that's her maiden name. She goes by her maiden name at work, and Hans doesn't have any idea that she's John McClane's wife until some dickhead reporter trying to get an Emmy broadcasts it actually on TV. So now Hans, at that point, has leverage to use against the one man who stands between him and daiquiris on the beach. And then on the ground, we have Officer Powell, who's a desk cop after 13 years, after he killed a 13-year-old accidentally. He has decided to not ever pull his gun again. So he's really a desk cop. He like happens to like be around when someone needs to go check on the Nakatomi Plaza. He was like, I'll take a drive
he's like
by.
a couple blocks away.
Yeah, he's like, I'll take a drive by, I'll check on it, and then I'll head home to my pregnant wife. And then, lo and behold, he's the man on the ground talking to John McClane through the walkie-talkie.
Yeah,
the whole movie.
Played by the Family Matters dad.
Yep.
Yeah.
Reginald
And then
Bell-Johnson.
the perfect cop.
Spoiler, he gets his redemption at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
But I'll let you gentlemen discuss.
Right on. All right. So I've seen this movie a million times, and it never gets old.
It really doesn't. It's one of those timeless movies.
Yeah, you can watch it. I watched it 3 times in 2 days, and I was just as entertained.
For this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I was like, we're talking about Die Hard next week. I'm like, I'm going to binge watch this thing a million times.
It's definitely one of those movies that
it never gets old.
It doesn't really get old.
It never gets old. It's so much fun.
I sat there. I watched I watched this one earlier this week and finished it up at work. And then yesterday, my wife and I watched the other 2. And I know a movie is entertaining when my wife sits there, and watches the majority of them with me, because she usually has nothing to do with my movies. But
this doesn't seem like it would be up her alley either. It's like an action shoot 'em up.
Sometimes she likes to turn her brain off too, just like me.
Yeah.
Aww.
Oh, that's cute.
And it's not, some stupid Hallmark movie. So I was pleased.
Right on. I think let's start with Bruce Willis's performance in this. I think he personifies like the everyday man. Like he could be anybody. He could be us. And I think that's why people gravitate towards this movie so much, because they're like, there's nothing special about him. He just happens to be a guy who has a stubborn as hell willpower to just survive. And that's all it is. And he's like, there's no superhero powers about him. Like you see other action movies, and the hero just kind of seems invulnerable.
Especially during this time period in the 80s, you had like the superhero action star like Chuck Norris, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah.
And in fact, Schwarzenegger was originally approached to star in this because he had last collaborated with the director John McTiernan back on Predator. And John McTiernan's movies were kind of part of that larger than life action star type thing. And at the time that this movie was being made, Bruce Willis was actually known as a comedic actor.
Mm-hmm.
He was on Moonlighting, and he had done like 2 other movies which were kind of like romantic comedies. I think he did Blind Date and some other film before this, and nobody wanted to cast him in this movie except John McTiernan because they were like, he's a comedian. Like we need an action star.
I do remember when this movie first came out, people were like, Bruce Willis is an action star now? Really? That's okay.
Yeah.
I guess we'll have to check that out.
Yeah, because like Kadish was saying, the most iconic action stars of that time were these like roided out, huge freaking beasts of men.
I could see Schwarzenegger playing Hans Gruber.
What?
Yeah.
No,
that would have been kind of cool.
Hans Gruber's got to have class.
He wouldn't have been able to do an American accent then. But
and I think it was Alan Rickman's.
Or he could have played that dude. The blonde haired
Carl.
Yeah.
I think it was Alan Rickman's choice to play Gruber in a suit the whole time too, because he was like, my character, he has class.
He's got class, and I think that sells it.
He's got clout.
Before we get to Hans Booby, the whole kind of concept that John McTiernan came up with, which was kind of similar to how the character was in the source material of the book, was that he was just like an average everyday guy put into an extraordinary situation.
He's the type of guy I like to refer to as good guy, bad partner.
But part of the thing that makes John McClane such an interesting character is like all throughout the movie, like most of the time when you have an action star, like they're just hyper competent, like they're like stuff can be blown up around them and they're just like cool with it.
They just walk
in
away.
this movie, he's constantly like, please don't let me die. Please don't let me die. he's like, well, how did I get in this situation? Why am I doing this?
Yeah. It sells the character so much, as like I said, as an everyday man, you can see yourself in this character because, and I mentioned it before we started recording, like the inner monologue of this character is hilarious. And I think that's the comedic chops that Bruce Willis had at the time, where like you have these inner monologues where he's talking to himself, but he's talking about the situation that he's in. It's kind of like this meta view, but does anybody else do that? Because I do that all the time.
Oh, for sure.
I feel like I'm crazy.
A lot of times Jude will just walk around talking to herself and I'll be like, what'd you say? And she's like, oh, never, nothing.
I was like, I'm talking to me.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I blame this movie.
You guys are all crazy.
You know what's crazy?
You don't do that?
No.
Oh, come on.
You know what's crazy is
Not out
that
loud.
this movie was like being written as it was being made, and it should look like shit, but it doesn't.
That's to the testament of John McTiernan. Like I said, I've said many times before when we talked about John McTiernan movies, he's made 3 perfect movies in his career: Die Hard, Hunt for October, and Predator. And like for some reason, like in the 80s and early 90s, like he was just like on his game. Like he was just amazing, and he really understood how to construct a story. And Die Hard redefined the action genre, like the whole man in a confined space against many other adversaries. Like
cocaine was so pure in the 80s.
yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about that guy.
But this movie was also shot by Jan de Bont, who was the cinematographer on Hunt for October, went on to become a director in his own right with like Twister and Speed. But Bruce Willis actually ad-libbed most of his like funny lines in this movie.
That makes sense. It feels so natural when he's up there and he's like looking down at the fire department coming. He's like, come on, mother. He's like swearing to himself, like, come on, guys, let's go. And then they start turning around and he just loses it. He freaks out because the one thing I think a lot of action stars in the 80s and 90s will do, especially the big time ones, is like when they're in a terrible situation, they kind of just own it. Like they're enjoying themselves. Like, yeah, I'm going to kick butt. I'm going to be the man.
This doesn't matter. I'm still going to win.
Yeah. And for this one, it's constantly kind of like Bruce Willis or John McCain is kind of like, I want out of this situation as soon as possible. I'm just trying. And every time he tries to get out or he thinks he's won, something happens where he gets sucked back into it and he has to change his game plan up. And
This is basically the movie The Godfather.
is it?
No, it's not.
I would love to hear that theory.
Just when
Jude.
I think I'm out, they pull me back in.
Yeah, but actually Bruce Willis, he was shooting Moonlighting at the time that they were making this. And originally, because of his Moonlighting shooting schedule, it looked like he wasn't going to be able to do the movie. But then Sybil Shepherd got pregnant. And so like they took a 12-week hiatus for shooting the TV show, which gave Bruce Willis the opportunity to do this movie. But oddly enough, so this movie took longer than 12 weeks to shoot, obviously. So he had to go back to work. And because they didn't have Bruce, like he'd come in like after he was done shooting for the day on Moonlighting and then he'd start shooting this movie. And because of his scheduling, the writers had to come up with stuff to fill in the schedule. And so like they expanded the part of Powell, who was the dad from Family Matters.
Mm-hmm.
They gave more time to the terrorists, more time to the hostages.
We had to talk about those Twinkies for a while.
Yeah.
So let him make a actually fully rounded movie
like,
with developed characters.
Yeah,
and stuff.
like a lot of what I think makes Die Hard work is that it's not just all on Bruce Willis's shoulders. Like that you have one of the most amazing bad guys ever on screen. You've got a great supporting cast, and there's just, if you look at the movie, like Bruce Willis, like even though he's driving the action, like there's other stuff going on in his orbit. And I think that's what makes the movie like so interesting is like, it's a multi-layered story.
It's a good formula for sure.
Oh yeah, you're fully aware of, because the situation could be easily overly complicated, especially if you're focused solely on Bruce Willis's character and you kind of only see the movie through his eyes. You'll be in the dark with a lot of this extra stuff that's happening around you with his wife dealing with the terrorists and the pregnant lady on the couch and like all these little character moments that Alan Rickman has to deal with as like he's the head honcho guy and he's like, well, now we have to deal with these hostages. And I like the idea because he had class, right? So there's this one scene where Holly walks into his office and he's like, what idiot put you in charge? He's like, you did.
And he just kind of looks at her like what did you just say?
How dare you? But you're not wrong. It was a good moment. And I love that stuff. And I love how it flushes out all the characters. And even the stuff that doesn't even need to be there. Carl, what's the guy's? Carl. the main like
The henchman.
the henchman bad guy
with the great hair.
with the amazing hair. Oh my God, these guys, this is fantastic.
Whenever I see him, the only thing I can think of is, I know you've never seen this, Alex, because you're a toddler, but the Money Pit with Shelley Long and Tom Hanks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah. He plays her ex-husband in that, and he is a very flamboyant orchestra director, and I just see him like directing an orchestra with both hands and his hair flying, and that's all I can think of every single time I see him in anything.
Nice.
As I think of that movie.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on that little vendetta that he has once his brother gets killed, which is my favorite line in the entire movie. But I'm just going to say it right now.
Blood?
No, when he comes down the elevator and Alan Rickman comes in and goes, "Now I have a machine gun." Ho, ho, ho. It was like, it's just delivered so perfectly. It was just this like contempt. And I was like, this is good stuff, man. That's my favorite line in the movie.
I absolutely love how they introduced the terrorists in this movie. Like for the first, I'd say maybe like 10 minutes that they're on screen, like Alan Rickman doesn't say a freaking word.
Yeah.
And then they have that shot where like, you know, you have the Christmas music playing and like they come out of the elevator very quietly.
Yep.
And Alan Rickman, he doesn't even have a gun. He just kind of steps out and he like owns the room. And he just kind of looks at all these people and he's just like you're mine now.
Yeah.
And he says it all with his eyes. And then like when we first hear him talk, like he's not shouting, he's not being aggressive. He's just like very calm and like, you know, like cool as a cucumber.
Yep.
And it's kind of funny because Alan Rickman, you know, he was a big stage actor. In fact, John McTiernan and producer Joel Silver, they found him when they went to a play of Dangerous Liaisons, where Alan Rickman played the bad guy, Count Valmont or something like that, de Valmont. And they saw him on stage and they were like, this is our Hans Gruber. Like, this is the guy that we need to get for this. And it was... I think it was just like fate, because like this not only launched Alan Rickman's career, but it also like enhanced the movie so much, because I always like to say that a movie is only as good as its main villain, because the better the villain, the more the good guy has to rise to the challenge to, you know, defeat him.
I agree.
And so like some of the best, most classic stories throughout time have like wonderful villains.
Yeah.
And Hans Gruber, like he epitomizes like he's almost like a Bond villain in a way.
I could definitely see him as a Bond villain.
Yeah. But he's just like, he's so smart. And that's what I like about this movie, that the bad guys are smart and they actually put up challenges to the good guy. That
You know who's not smart in this movie? All of the law enforcement.
all the police. Yeah. They did the police pretty dirty in this movie.
They're pretty much just assholes.
Yeah, they're
the whole time.
buffoons.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And I was like, why is everyone always screaming at John McCain?
Well, when they first get there, the cop's like, hey, this like a dead body fell in my car. And he's like, you don't know who that is. That could be a stockbroker. Like, he's got bullet holes in him, dude. What are you talking about?
If there's one criticism I have about this movie, it's that they don't make the cops as competent as everyone else.
Yeah, like from the beginning, he's on the walkie-talkie and he's like, I got a problem here. It's a 911. She's like, sir,
this is
private. And he's like, no shit, lady.
Do I sound like I'm ordering a pizza? That was the only good thing about making the cops so incompetent, is John McClane's dialogue, his quips back at him were amazing, especially when he went off on that police detective guy. It was fantastic.
It's also funny because we get introduced into Big Johnson and Little Johnson, the two FBI agents.
Oh yeah, Johnson and Johnson.
Idiots.
No relation.
But a lot of law enforcement doesn't have a lot of respect for the FBI. In fact, they say that FBI stands for effing bunch of idiots. So I can understand making the FBI out to be kind of buffoons, but the fact that like not so much the rank and file policemen, but the people in charge of the police as being buffoons, that really kind of takes me out of the movie occasionally.
There was one other criticism I had, which is, it's really nitpicky, but like at several key moments when people had each other at gunpoint and they would like, obviously if you shoot, they would just end your problems, and they never do. It's like, I have you at gunpoint. I'm ready to blow your head off, but I'm going to wait because I need to talk to you for a second.
Some quips I need to get out of my body before it's
The movie would end though.
No, exactly. So. That's it. It would end the movie. That's why I said it was nitpicky, but it's just one of those funny things where like, especially the blonde dude, Carl, who was like really gunning for McClane. He wanted to kill this dude. Mm-hmm. He had him. He was gone. And he was like, I'm not going to shoot you yet. Like, come on.
Well, he wanted to beat the crap out of him. He wanted to make him suffer.
It was like a macho thing.
Yeah, well, I think it was just like a sadistic thing. 'Cause
Revenge.
He's supposedly the most, ruthless of the Hans Gruber crew.
Yeah.
Speaking of, did you know that guy was a Russian ballet dancer who defected to the U.S.?
I did not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
there are pictures of him out there in leotards, like doing the dance.
I wouldn't mess with him.
It almost looks like a Saturday Night Live spoof image.
Does he have the hair?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. I need to see those pictures. That's awesome. Okay, so let's talk about the stunts real quick, because this is something that I personally didn't know about this movie that I learned while researching for the podcast. Bruce Willis did like 90% of his own stunts, and I think that has improved the movie.
The 80s were like a
was
wild
different
time.
world, man.
There was an interview.
Yeah.
There was an interview with him where he was like, "Dude, he's like, this movie is probably the most exhausted I've ever been." And there was a video of him. Do you guys remember when he threw the chair at the window when he was trying to get a hold of the cop down
Yeah.
on the first floor? There was a video of him. He had to throw that chair. He broke like 3 chairs trying to do that. He was throwing this chair at the window with all his might, and it would not break. And he just kept doing it. And you could tell he was so exhausted. He could barely hold it up. And he just kept throwing it. And then finally, when he did that last shot, which is the one that you see in the movie, he smashed through the window and he just throws everything down and walks away off camera. He's like, "We did it." And he just starts cheering, and everybody, the whole crew is all up in arms. It was a good moment. It was something cool that I thought really adds to this movie and how good it is and how believable it is that this everyday man is doing all these crazy things.
Oh, you want to talk about the stunts? So after they cast Alan Rickman as Hans Gruber, they found out that he could do a pretty passable American accent, and so they wanted to create a scene where Hans Gruber and John McCain meet face to face. And so there's a scene in the movie where Alan Rickman, he goes down to check on some of the detonators that they planted in
And
the
wasn't
building.
this his first scene that he filmed for the movie?
Yeah, so they didn't want to rehearse the scene where the two, like the good guy and the bad guy, meet. So because they wanted it to kind of be like spontaneous in a way. And so they shot the very first scene of this movie is that meeting between Hans Gruber and John McCain.
That was the first thing that they did?
That was the first thing they shot.
That's cool.
And Alan Rickman, when he hopped down, there was like a 3-foot like drop from where like he was up and had to land on the floor. And the minute he landed, he like tore cartilage in his knee.
Oh
And,
no.
and so
Oh my gosh.
and so that scene where he's leaning up against the wall and he's having that conversation with John McClane, he's leaning up against the wall because he can't put any weight on that leg.
No way.
Because he's got
That's
like a
funny.
leg brace
Such a
underneath his
badass.
That's so
his
cool.
pants.
He just went with it. That's awesome.
Well, I mean, like he had to go to the hospital
Afterwards,
and
yeah.
stuff. But like when he came back and they were doing that scene, like the reason he's just kind of leaning up against that wall is because like his knee is messed up.
Off
He
of a
can't put any
little
weight on it.
3-foot jump, man. That's
Yeah.
crazy. Good stuff.
And
All right.
just to piggyback on Alan Rickman and Stunts, like his final scene,
Oh yeah,
like
Where-
they,
where
they did him
drop
dirty
him.
just to get that.
yeah. So like
He didn't know that was going to happen, right?
yeah, so like in this movie, this was kind of like the height of like the old school optical effects before like everything started going digital. And in the final shot where Hans Gruber falls to his death, there's this highly slow motion scene where you have like the ground of the Nakatomi Plaza like in the bottom, and you see Alan Rickman falling like super slow motion to his death.
And the trauma on his face is
Yeah.
real.
Yeah. So like, they were holding him there, getting ready to do the shoot, and the cameras start going at like 300 frames a second, super slow motion. And he had been told that they were going to drop him on the count of 3. And so like, you see him kind of like look at the camera and he's like kind of like evil looking. And the stuntman dropped him at the count of 2. And so the look of surprise because it's like he was doing
It was
a 40.
it was a 20-foot drop.
20-foot drop to this like, airbag. And so like when he just started falling, he was like, "Oh God!" and they captured that on screen. So like that was the take that they used in the movie.
That's perfect.
So like
that's
that
pretty
reaction
good.
he has of him falling to his death was like real.
That's awesome. Because it signifies something for the character as well, too. Because like throughout this entire movie, there is no question in his mind that he will win. Like that's his iron will going up against John McClane's iron will. And the moment where he realizes he loses was that moment that they caught on scene. That's awesome. That's
He's
really cool.
sipping margaritas on the beach, collecting 20%. Go ahead.
I really like the swearing in these movies.
Yeah. Did you learn how to swear?
I learned how to swear.
Yeah.
It's really over the top.
It was no. I don't think it is. I don't know. I think it's pretty accurate.
It's just so 80s and early 90s with these with the dialogue in these movies.
But
It was great.
I love all like the kind of satellite characters in this whole thing. Like, what's his name? Ellis.
Ellis.
Played by Hart Bochner, who was Supergirl's boyfriend in the movie Supergirl. So he's like the yuppie cokehead.
That guy.
Yeah.
Dude, that guy was
Rolex guy.
like,
And
he was a douchebag, but I got to say the actor, he pulled it off.
Oh, he's great.
He was so good.
And he ad-libbed that line, Hans, booby, I'm your white knight. and when he said that, like Alan Rickman being from the UK, he doesn't know any of the slang. And so like that reaction of him being like, what did he just say? What was like legit, because like he'd never heard that before. He's like, Hans, booby.
This movie is magic.
And it's also funny because like, so in the movie, it's implied that he's like a cocaine addict.
Oh, yeah, heavily implied. Yeah.
And when he sits down with Hans to kind of talk to John McCain and try to get him to come in, they give him a glass of Coke. And I think, and it's widely kind of speculated online. It's like that, you know, like he asked them, was like, do you guys have any Coke? And so like they thought it was Coca-Cola.
Oh, they thought it was soda. Oh, that's funny. That's a good moment too.
Even though it's like never stated in the movie, but like it's just kind of like a fun reference.
Yeah.
And then we got Argyle.
Yeah.
Argyle,
I forgot
limo
about
driver.
Argyle.
the
I
limo
love
driver.
him.
And it's funny because the teddy bear that John McCain arrives in LA with, that's the same teddy bear that they used in John McTiernan's next movie, Hunt for October.
Oh, is it the one
Yeah.
that? Oh, that's
I guess
cool.
so.
The one that Jack Ryan
gave to
gets
his daughter.
for his daughter. That's the same one as in this movie.
Nice.
And we have Reginald Bell Johnson as Powell, of course, and the principal from
Breakfast Club,
who plays the chief of police, the
Right.
kind of
The buffoon.
the buffoonish.
He
chief
plays
of
such a
police.
good buffoon.
Yeah,
But you also got like we've already talked about Carl, but then we've got Theo, the guy who's like, and the quarterback is toast. You know, the
black the safe cracker.
Yeah, the safe
That's
cracker.
who is driving the ambulance when
Yes.
Argyle takes him out, right?
Yeah, and I love how like all these characters have like their moments in this movie. Like Argyle, he's arguably the greatest hero in this film. He stops the bad guys from getting away.
Yeah.
Yep.
You've got Powell, who saved John McClane's life at the end and has that kind of character arc of like, I'm never drawing my gun again and stuff like that. And he eventually does.
It was kind of a messed up, like,
Yeah.
quote unquote redemption. Like, oh, I shot a kid because I thought he had a gun. And that was his moment where he was like, man, I don't want to draw my gun on anybody anymore. But then by the end of the movie, he's like, he's got his mojo back and now he can draw his gun.
But that guy was German. So.
It's like, it was a little weird.
Terrorist.
I feel like they could have done a little bit different on his backstory to try to make it a little bit less of a weird thing.
You have Agent Big Johnson, who's played by Robert Davi, who is from Alex's favorite movie, The Goonies. But also Little Johnson was the guy who played Balrog, the boxer in Street Fighter.
Oh, really?
And the screenwriter of this movie, David S. D'Souza, he was the one who wrote and directed Street Fighter. So, a lot of crossover here, which I find very
There's
interesting.
some DNA.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And of course,
Who knew Hollywood was so small?
It's amazing.
we watched Speed not too long ago, and there was a incident here in this movie where Jan de Bont, the cinematographer, got stuck in the elevator on the 40th floor.
Oh, that was while he was filming this?
That's while he was filming this, and that inspired him for the opening scene in Speed, where all the people are trapped in the elevator.
This movie is far superior.
Speed, which is often referred to as Die Hard on a bus.
This is true, huh?
Yeah.
So this movie was all shot. The Nakatomi Tower is actually the Fox Plaza building.
Yeah.
And, Fox kind of, it was under construction while the time this movie was being made. So all the scenes on the floors that are under construction, like that was actually real.
Yeah, that's cool.
But Fox owned the building, and this building's in Century City, which was not far from where I lived back when I used to live in Los Angeles. And so like some nights I'd just drive down there and just like look at the Nakatomi Tower.
Ooh.
Yeah, like I just
Die Hard.
Yeah,
Well,
that's exactly what I did. Like I would literally park on the street, get out of my car, and just look up at that building and just be like, Die Hard was shot here.
Wow.
I think I would do the same thing.
And it was just really cool. Like every time people came to visit me in town, I'd take them by that. I was like, that's where they shot Die Hard.
Yeah.
And
You could have been the guy on the bus.
Yeah, you could be the LA
And
tour
if you
driver.
look to your left over here,
that one
this is the
thing.
building that was Nakatomi Plaza.
This guy's super famous, right? I've seen him a million times.
he's been in a lot of stuff. He's a
Okay.
stunt,
No one can
I'm
see
sorry.
who
I'm
you're
sorry.
talking
You're right.
about.
So like there's this Asian terrorist guy who's a member of Hans Gruber's team, and there's this scene where he's like getting ready for the police to kind of storm the building, and he hides behind this little kind of like snack kiosk, and he just starts stealing candy bars.
He was eating
Nestle Crunch.
Yeah.
He was eating a Crunch bar while the cops were blow torching a glass door to get in. Like that's what the level of the police were in this movie.
I will say that Hans Gruber's team is very well rounded.
Oh yeah, very diverse.
Yeah, very diverse crowd. He's got, the Germans, he's got the Americans, he's got some Asian guy.
Yeah. Good for him, man.
They all have their roles.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's little things like that where like they show like this kind of nameless terrorist who just for no good reason just decides to eat some candy bars in the movie. And it's such a great little character moment.
They're just trying to pad the runtime. That's all.
Well, I think that like that was something that was improvised by the actor, where he's just like he's stealing candy bars and eating them, getting ready to do this thing. And John McTiernan realizes like that's a great little bit. We should leave it in the movie.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, there's so many little things like that in this movie that I just love. Like
I also think that actor just wanted a snack.
That's very possible.
Bro, we've been filming for a while, and my blood sugar's getting low.
Yes.
I need some chocolate.
My blood sugar's getting low.
Yeah. But it's kind of funny because, like Jude said, they were literally writing this movie as they were shooting it. Like they didn't have a completed script by the time they went into filming.
That "Come Out to the Coast" line was fed to him like right before he said it on like a cell phone or something.
Nice.
But the fact that they were writing this as it was being shot, and they do everything right from a writing perspective, like setup and payoff. This is like a typical textbook example of how you do that. And the whole like first, I want to say like 15, 20 minutes of this movie is all just setup. And, we talked about that when we talked about Predator too, where John McTiernan takes his time to kind of set the stage. Yeah. And then once things get going, he doesn't have to stop to explain stuff. He can just like keep going with it.
And that's something that really struck me right off the bat. As soon as we meet the terrorists, we have the two guys that walk into the lobby, and the one guy's doing some sports reference and he's big and bombastic and he's distracting the guard. And then the guy just shoots him right in the head. Like there's no beating around the bush or nothing. Like these guys have a job to do. And I think that really sets the momentum for the whole rest of the movie.
Yeah, Carl's just a cold-blooded, right from the start, just kills his security.
Yeah, like no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
But all the terrorists are very intelligent in this movie. Like everything they do has a purpose. And if it weren't for John McCain, like they would have like easily like gotten away with this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they had everything set up, but they even knew the exactly what the FBI agents were going to do as soon as they got there. Because one of the things, the setup and payoff thing was like, the crack safer guy was like, crack safer? The safe crack. Well,
we knew what you meant.
Thank you so much, guys. The guy who was cracking the safe, he set up early on in the movie, like, hey, once we get past this initial part of it, there's going to be this like freaking crazy magnetic locking mechanism that's going to come down. And Alan Rickman's character is like, don't worry about it. I got it. He's like, there's no way we can shut it off if that goes off. And then like later on in the movie, you find out that he's using the FBI to crack the safe.
You ask for a miracle, Theo. I give you the FBI.
It was so good. So good. All right.
And the Christmas aspects of this movie, I just got to talk about this.
Oh, go ahead.
I told Jude that like this movie just fills me with the Christmas spirit because it
truly does.
It really does. Like it's all about like family, the importance of family, and goodwill towards men, and like all this.
I have
stuff.
A confession to make to you, Kadish. Prior to us getting together in a relationship, I had never watched this movie. The first time I watched it was with you.
Aww.
But
what a Merry Christmas spirit that was.
That's my gift to you because I can't afford to buy actual ones.
It's about the the importance of giving. Like now I have a machine gun, ho ho ho, like Santa Claus. So like there's a lot of Christmassy stuff in this movie, but the biggest thing is the music. And one of the things that I think John McTiernan did masterfully is so it was his choice to use Beethoven's Ode to Joy as kind of like the theme for the terrorists. So every time the terrorists are on screen, there are these like interpretations of that classic Beethoven kind of Christmassy, cheery song. Mm-hmm. And, you also got Christmas in Hollis from Run DMC in this movie. You've got all these like classical, kind of musical songs that are kind of associated with Christmas. And they're used in various ways throughout the movie. And it just makes it feel like so Christmas, even like there's no snow or anything like that. But like the feeling of it, and like that scene where they finally break into the vault and the crescendo swells with Ode to Joy. It's like da 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 da.
The light comes, the vault opens.
Jan de Bont's cinematography with like the lens flares, and that slow track in on Hans Gruber as he's just looking at his accomplishment.
He's so proud of himself.
Yeah, it's like, there's been a big debate on whether or not these are actually Christmas movies.
This one definitely is.
I
The
would say,
second
yeah.
one, I'd argue, isn't. But
Well, to me, this is up there with like, It's a Wonderful Life and stuff like that as like the
I think
Christmas
you're
movie.
crazy.
you think I'm crazy? Which one, me or him?
Both of you.
All right, guys. Let's do some final thoughts around the table. Vader, you've been pretty quiet. What's your final thought on Die Hard?
I don't have a whole lot to say other than what you guys have said already. It's a fun movie.
Yeah.
It's a peak 80s action.
Is it? Do you watch this once a year at least?
No.
No? Okay.
I haven't seen this movie in 30 years.
Oh,
Oh, that's right. You said that at the start. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is all Kadish. I
every
completely
once in a while we
appreciate this
throw 'em a
movie.
bone.
I really appreciate this movie, but I don't know why I haven't seen it more than I have, to be completely honest with you, because it's thoroughly enjoyable and it's super fun. And I like Bruce Willis movies. I really don't have an excuse for not watching these movies.
Shame.
So yeah,
Shame.
but yeah, highly recommended. Absolutely.
Right on.
If it's
Jude?
a Christmas movie,
Oh, I think
it's an action movie set.
I watch
during
it every Christmas.
We do.
I think it qualifies. This one in particular. Jude,
You're kind of a weirdo though.
final thoughts on Die Hard.
I enjoy this movie. I think it's a good movie. I have mixed feelings on whether or not it's an actual Christmas movie, but because it's Kadish's favorite Christmas movie, we do watch it every Christmas season. And I also make him watch Gremlins with me because that's my favorite Christmas movie.
Right on.
And I give it 4 out of 5 terrorists.
There we go. Right on. Kadish, you want to gush one more time with final thoughts?
Yeah, like this is a perfect movie for me. This is 5 out of 5. I can watch this movie a billion times and never get tired of it. In fact, I would say that this is my Jurassic Park equivalent to you.
Oh,
Or
okay.
like how you're obsessed with Jurassic Park. Like to me, like Die Hard is like the franchise that I obsess over. And
I feel that. I feel it.
yeah,
It kind of surprises me a little bit.
Why?
I don't know.
Okay.
It just does. It just does.
but this reminds me of like when Bruce Willis actually cared about his performances and like, when filmmakers actually cared about delivering a good story and all this stuff. Like everything about this movie just works for me, and I love it. Like even the cinematography, like we're watching it right now and there's like this red light and then it goes to the blue light and it just feels so Christmassy. Just like the inherent look of it, subliminally, it's telling you Christmas colors,
Every time a cop car goes by me with its lights on, I go, "Oh, Christmas!"
Yeah. You get filled with that holiday cheer
Yeah.
right after you get a ticket.
But this movie, it's one of my all-time favorites, and I'm so glad that we got to watch it again.
Yeah, just for you, buddy. Merry Christmas. Okay, final thoughts on this. I love this movie. In particular, this one I think is up there with top action movies for me. John McCain is the everyday man. I don't ever get tired of watching this movie. Like I said, I watched it 3 times in a row just for this podcast, and I was like, I could watch it again right now. In fact, we kind of are. And I'm like, I'm all right with that. I'm good. So yeah, I highly recommend it. If you haven't seen it for some crazy reason, go watch it. And even if you have seen it a million times, go watch it again. It's
and
good.
it's on HBO Max right now. You can watch them all on HBO Max.
Yeah, they're all available on HBO Max if you have that service.
Yeah,
And
don't watch the 5th one.
Is that your Fallen Kingdom?
Oh, it's worse. It's much worse.
All right, guys. Before we move on to the next awesome Die Hard movie, let's take a quick break to listen to some sponsors.
Whether you host a nightly dinner party for 2 or 5, keeping your eating and dining area clean helps keep your mind on the dinner party and not on the cleanup afterwards. Viva paper towels clean like cloth, trapping splatters and sauces that could become countertop stains or stuck on messes. And they're 2 times more durable when wet compared to the leading value brand. For an exceptional cloth-like paper towel, there's Viva. Visit vivatowels.com to soak up the clean feeling of home.
You know what this is?
A commercial?
Right, and you know what that means.
Time for a snack?
Wrong. I want you to do some heart-healthy exercise. Yes, you! Try some seated leg extensions right now. Just lift each leg up and extend it straight, 1 at a time, 6 to 8 times.
I can do that.
Yes, you can. Remember, every commercial is a chance to sneak in heart-healthy activity. Visit findexerciseanywhere.com and speak with your doctor to learn more about the risks of heart failure.
Welcome back, everybody. Hey, real quick, if you want to support this podcast, go to saltynerdclub.com and join our Patreon club. There you will get exclusive access to behind-the-scenes footage of us doing the podcast. You'll get direct access to us on a Twitter message board. You can contact us and let us know what you think of the show and give us feedback and hang out and talk nerd stuff. And also, you will get exclusive podcasts and blooper reels. So sometimes we say things that shouldn't be on the podcast, and then we give it to the patrons.
And every
really?
dollar.
Except for last week.
Yeah, I was going to say, wait a second. What?
And every dollar we get from the Patreon is going towards us getting a van.
Oh, is that the new thing? Jude wants to
I'm
make...
really lobbying for this salty nerd van.
Jude wants to buy one of those creepy white vans and put our logo on the side.
Put a wrap
Just
around
drive it around town.
All right. Anyway, yeah, saltynerdclub.com. Help support the podcast. The more money we get from you guys, the more content we can give back.
The more vans we can buy.
And if you guys can't or won't contribute monetarily, you can always help us out by recommending the podcast to others and giving us a review on either iTunes or Spotify. A little bit of support goes a long way. So if you don't want to throw some money our way, then please consider throwing a review or a recommendation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and in your review, let us know if you are streaming or downloading, because we're very curious.
We're very curious about this.
Vader's obsessed with that.
I'm not obsessed with it.
Your vote tally on Twitter had like exactly half. It was 50-50.
It was 55-45.
Was it?
Which is way different than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
But
It's weird. I don't know. It's hard. We're trying to keep track of our analytics, and it's kind of tough because if it's not, I don't know. We don't want to have to get into it. But anyway, help us out. Let us know. All right, guys, we're back. We're going to be talking about Die Harder, the second movie in the Die Hard franchise.
And the movie that started that whole ER sequel title thing.
This movie, I'm just going to get right out there. I think this movie suffers from a bad case of sequelitis.
I agree.
this is the airport one, right?
Yeah, the airport one. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, right there and then there, I'm kind of like I feel like what they did was they went into this and they were like, well, everybody really loved Die Hard, so let's just do everything bigger.
Yes.
And they didn't give a crap about it.
I said the exact same thing.
Yeah. And it just didn't come off as intelligent as the first one. So Jude, you want to give us the spiel? What's this movie all about?
All right.
And or the box office too, I guess.
1990 Die Hard 2. So the budget for this was $70 million. Wow. So it got about a 50 mil increase. What do you think it made at the box office? This came out in 1990, so these are 90s dollars.
Another summer movie?
I don't have that information.
Oh,
yes, it was July 3rd.
Okay. What did the first one make? 140. 140. I'm going to say this one made at least 180.
Okay.
Vader.
What was the budget?
It was $70 million.
160.
Go up. Come on, guys.
Is it more than that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, 200?
Yeah.
Okay. Not bad.
240.
240 exactly.
What?
Yeah, this was.
You should see the big smile on his face.
Oh, he's so proud. Somebody take his picture.
This was an even bigger hit than the first one in terms of box office.
Yeah.
And it's also funny because like in the movie itself, so this came out, like they shot it in 89, but it came out in 90. And like throughout the movie, they're just saying like, come on guys, it's the 90s.
Yeah. And this movie was filmed in a gentler time when you could just bring your stun gun on the plane with you.
Yeah, you could bring all types of weapons on board with you.
That was my favorite part of the whole movie.
I used to have spray, but now I have this.
I tried it on my dog, but he didn't walk right for the next week.
Let me walk you through it, and then you guys can talk about it.
All right, go ahead, Jim.
So John McCain is waiting on Holly's plane at Dulles Airport when his keen New York cop sense notices that terrorists are afoot, and it's up to him to keep Holly's plane safe in the air from the terrorists who have taken over the air traffic control in an effort to abscond with an international political prisoner.
Snooze.
And it's important to note that that John McCain is an LAPD officer in this movie, even though it takes place entirely in Virginia.
Right out of
so in the first movie, he was a New York cop in LA, and in this movie, he's an LA cop in Virginia.
Yeah, because I'm assuming, did they say it in the movie that he moved to LA to be with Holly?
Yes.
Okay, so that's kind of, it gives it a little bit of a backstory, but overall,
and he has to tell everyone how he comes across.
Yeah.
Like, I used to be a New York cop.
Yeah. And then, they figured it out by the third one that everybody just wants him to be a New York cop. Anyway, so this movie, like, I really did not like this movie at all. Like, it's everything that they could possibly do wrong with the first one. They did it in this one. Like,
It's got Dennis Franz and Fred Thompson.
I don't even know who the bad guys are. They're so forgettable. Like they have the only thing I remember about the bad guy is that he liked to dance around naked in his hotel room. Like that's the only thing.
He was doing Tai Chi.
He was doing his kata.
It should have been freaking Jean-Claude Van Damme.
I thought
okay.
I thought the bad guy was the most interesting man in the world.
Oh, really? Is it?
Totally don't get that.
No, is that actually who that is?
Was it?
I don't know. It reminds me.
Oh, it looks like
no,
him,
he's talking about the general.
The general.
Oh, the general guy.
Yeah.
He kind of does suck.
It's like the most interesting man in the world.
I don't always take over the world. But when I do, I take over the world.
It's just goofy. Like let's make the cops were imbeciles in the first movie. Let's make them even more of an imbecile in this movie. Like the bad guys were like supposed to be suave and classy. Let's make them more suave and classy in this. It's just John McCain's freaking invulnerable in this movie. Like things happen to him that just should not be survivable, and it's just like, well, he's John McClane, so I guess it's just everything likable about him in the first movie.
They really did kind of they went a little overboard.
And in the meantime, Holly's just flying on a plane.
Dude, that broke the movie for me too.
Yeah.
Because like you're gonna hijack an airport. The airplanes that are flying around are not gonna just keep flying around. They're gonna be like they're at BWI, right?
No, they're in a fictional airport that's supposed to be like Dulles International.
I thought they were at Dulles.
Was it Dulles or BWI?
No,
It is Dulles.
It's a fictional airport. It doesn't exist.
Oh, okay.
But it's the equivalent of Dulles International.
Okay. Well, either way, like Richmond and BWI are like 15 minutes away. So like they could just fly away. So there's no real tension in what these terrorists are trying to do.
They do explain that like they redirected all the planes with enough fuel to get to another airport. And so the ones that didn't have the fuel to make it to a different airport
just have to stay up there till they crash.
Yeah, I didn't buy it. Like it took me out of the movie. The whole premise of this started out wrong. And I was like, no, that's not.
I thought the best part of this was just the fact that reporter was on the same flight.
Yeah.
As Holly.
Yeah.
It was,
we didn't even talk about Thornburg in our discussion.
I know, yeah. Well, we kind of mentioned him in passing.
Called him a dickhead.
Well, it's played by the actor William Atherton, who played the bad guy in Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
The guy who from the EPA.
Also a dickhead in Ghostbusters.
That's where I
yeah. that man has no dick.
He has no dick. Yeah.
And so like he's one of those guys who's really good at playing a jerk. And he was the reporter in the first Die Hard who basically exposed Holly McClane's identity.
Yeah.
And
to Hans Gruber.
And that led to Hans Gruber taking her hostage.
Yeah. So she has like this like vendetta against him, and he's gone on to become like some famous reporter now because of the incident in LA. Now he's like top dog with the reporters, and he's always the one on the cutting edge.
He's not quite top dog. He's trying to get onto network, and basically like his reporting of the terrorist incident in this movie is what he's trying to use to make that leap.
Yeah.
But he has like a restraining order against Holly Gennaro because like she punched him in the first movie and knocked out 2 of his teeth.
Yeah. It came off to me as like a member berry. Like, remember this guy from the first movie? Like, that's the only purpose that he served in this movie.
Well, it's kind of funny because Joel Silver, the producer of the first Die Hard and the sequel, that's kind of his MO, where he basically just takes the same movie and it's just like, let's just change the location, but like, keep everything else the same.
Yeah,
I don't have a huge issue. I don't have a huge issue with them bringing some recurring characters,
some member berries.
Sure.
Right. I mean, it's okay sometimes.
It ties the movies together a little bit.
You think so?
Yeah.
Because even they called the cop from the first one, like, hey, can you send me a fax? Like, hey, remember that guy that you liked so much from the first movie?
Well, if I found that completely believable.
You did?
If he's working for the LAPD and that's his buddy, then why wouldn't he do that?
I suppose. Maybe I'm being...
That guy's still on a desk, by the way.
Yeah. It was also kind of a cheap way to get Reginald Vell Johnson back in the movie, even though he's in there for like less than like 2 minutes.
Yeah,
but it was kind of like a fun cameo. So the interesting thing about this movie is that it too is based on a book. So the first movie was based off of this novel, Nothing Lasts Forever by Roderick Thorp, but they used an entirely separate novel called 58 Minutes, written by Walter Wagner. And it's basically about an airport that gets hijacked. And, in 58 minutes, the main protagonist's flight that his daughter is on is going to crash because it runs out of fuel. So he has to basically, save the day within 58 minutes.
Right on.
And so they used this as the basis for Die Hard 2. And Stephen S. D'Souza, who wrote the first Die Hard, comes on again and basically wrote this movie. And you can kind of tell that, like, it's not quite up to the quality of the first Die Hard. In fact, I think I agree with Alex in the sense that my biggest issue with this movie has always been that in the first Die Hard, the violence is very believable. Whereas in this movie, the violence kind of gets ratcheted up a notch to almost cartoonish proportions.
Yeah.
Believable?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the stuff that happens in the first Die Hard movie could actually happen. Whereas with this one, getting, ejecting out of the pilot seat as like the plane goes up.
Okay.
They were those grenades. So there's a scene where John McClane's in the plane and the bad guys have him completely surrounded and there's no way for him to escape. So what they decide to do is they're going to throw all the grenades that they have into the cockpit of the plane to blow up John McCain. And these grenades, the fuses on them are like 3 minutes long. Like they throw them in there.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It takes a really long time.
They bounce around in the freaking cockpit of the plane for a good couple of minutes.
Long enough for him to strap himself into the pilot seat.
Yeah, and hit the eject button.
Yeah.
And then as soon as he hits the eject button, the whole plane blows up.
They're falling into the cockpit one at a time.
Yeah. Clink.
Clunk.
Alex, I have
clunk.
to stop you for a second because
What's
you're
up?
pulling a Kadish and you keep pronouncing his name wrong and it's making me crazy.
It's not McClane?
It's McLean. You keep saying McCain.
Do I say
You
McCain?
do. You're saying John McCain.
My bad. McClane.
Yeah.
Mick Lane. Okay. McClane. Gotcha.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jude. I'm pulling a cage. That's fine.
But, another factor in going against this movie is that John McTiernan did not return to direct this film.
There's
So,
the problem.
so this was directed by Rennie Harlan, who you might recognize. He was the director of Deep Blue Sea. He also did The Adventures of Ford Fairlane and Cutthroat Island. He used to be married to Gina Davis. He did one of my favorite movies of all time, which is The Long Kiss Goodnight, which is a big guilty pleasure film of mine. So he's a pretty competent director, but at this time, he had just done that, The Adventures of Ford Fairlane. So he didn't have a lot of experience under his belt, and he was kind of thrust into the deep end on things. But I think that he did a pretty competent job, considering what he had to work with.
Yeah, I mean, I'm being real nitpicky with this, but I do think it does suffer a lot from some sequelitis stuff, and it takes me out of the movie. I mean, I would classify this one as more of a guilty pleasure than the first one's just a full on pleasure. I love it every time. This one's I can still enjoy it.
This movie is just let's do everything bigger, better, faster, longer.
Yeah,
and it's kind of funny because
harder, whatever.
So William Atherton, who plays the main bad guy in this, who's William Sadler, who plays Colonel Stewart, is the main bad guy in this movie. And Sadler, you've seen him in so many different things. He was in the Shawshank Redemption. Yeah. But probably most notable is he played Death in the Bill and Ted movies.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting because he's not who you typically think of as a really intimidating bad guy, especially following a performance like Alan Rickman had in the first one. But his team of mercenaries has the Terminator on it, Robert Patrick.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's got John Leguizamo.
Does it really?
Yeah, you didn't see him?
No, I didn't notice that.
Well, yeah, blink and you'll miss him. But John Leguizamo.
I did see the Terminator guy. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's kind of funny looking at all the actors who are in this movie. It's oh yeah, that guy.
Dude,
that guy.
the henchmen in all three of these movies are incredible.
Yeah.
They're just all big, buff bodybuilder. Some of them are legit actors.
Yeah.
You've seen them all in other things.
But instead of European criminals in this movie, they're all ex-military guys.
Yeah. Can you? I had a really hard time following what the whole point of these bad guys taking over this airport for. Can you kind of explain that to me
Carl.
a little bit? Because I was kind of I'm lost. They're trying to rescue this military dude who's also a drug dealer.
So are you guys familiar with the Iran-Contra affair?
No.
So this was a big thing in the 80s where basically Colonel Oliver North was brought up on charges of a scandal where basically the CIA and the military were selling guns to drug cartels in South America in order to fight communism.
Okay.
So the drug cartels would supply the arms to the guerrilla militias that would fight the communists trying to embed themselves into South America. And there was this, I believe he was a Norwegian, no, not Norwegian. Some South American country. I'm blanking on the name right now, but it was Manuel Noriega, who was in charge of the small country that was kind of at the center of the scandal. And so basically this movie just kind of took that and changed the name. So General Esperanza, who's played by Franco Nero, who Vader kind of says looks like the most interesting man in the world.
I see it. I see it now.
He was actually in John Wick 2. He played the head of the Continental Hotel in Rome.
Oh, nice.
But same dude?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But so General Esperanza was taken prisoner. He was basically kind of, deposed in his South American country. And he was going to be flown and extradited to the United States. And these military guys who were hijacking the airport, they want to liberate him because they want to continue their fight against the communists.
Okay.
And he's going to fund it with all the drug money that he basically accumulated as leader of this South American country. Now, funny enough, the South American country used in this movie is the same as the one that they used in Commando. It's made up. It's a fictional South American country. But Stephen S. D'Souza, the screenwriter of this movie, was also the screenwriter on Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
And he just used the same city.
He used the same city. So,
That's
so
awesome.
technically, Commando is in the same cinematic universe as Die Hard now.
So we
That's awesome.
could get a John McCain
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
and Arnold Schwarzenegger crossover.
And the country is Valverde.
Isn't that cheese?
I don't know, but
It's the
basically,
kind of, like, is that cheese?
That's
I
a
don't know.
street
It's-
in Las Vegas.
Is it?
it's the
Valley Verde?
It's the fictional country of Valverde, headed by the former General Esperanza, that Arnold Schwarzenegger fought in.
Nice.
in the movie Commando.
That's awesome.
That's actually
Amazing.
pretty good.
That's good stuff.
Do you think their characters knew each other?
I kind of hope they do now.
I have a nerd boner right now. Thinking of it.
I'm imagining a spin-off.
What if they went to
as
high
we
school
speak.
together?
I can see Expendables 12 going to Valverde. And
There you go.
doing some stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. What if Arnold Schwarzenegger's character was a distant cousin of Hans Gruber?
Here's another sequel for you. Vader, what did you think about this second movie?
I think I told you already.
You might have.
It's just more of the same, except just bigger.
Oh yeah.
It's just
Is there any part of it that you like really enjoy, or is it just kind of?
it's just a dumb waste your afternoon kind of fun movie. I didn't hate it or anything. I enjoyed it. I had a good time watching it. Like I said, I watched it with my wife yesterday. We both sat there.
The second one too?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, she watched the second and the third one with me.
Right on.
Aw.
So, but
You guys had a little marathon.
well, I watched them and she made dinner with it on in the background, but she was watching, so that was fun. But no, I have a good time with all of these. They're not bad movies. They're enjoyable. I never once wanted to get up and not watch. So
I kind of wanted to turn this one off. I was kind of
but it's like I said with the first movie, I don't think I've seen these movies since 1990. I really don't. I can't remember a time when I sat down and watched these movies.
Wow. That's crazy.
I really like Die Hard 2 though.
Really?
I know that it's not as good as the first one, but like to me, it's still like a really fun, enjoyable movie.
It felt a little too meta. I mean, there was even a moment where Bruce Willis's character was like, "How can the same thing happen to the same guy
twice?"
Yeah.
Twice. It was like it was so
and
obvious.
Holly's like, "Why does this keep happening to us?"
Yeah,
John?"
it just they kind of refer to themselves a little bit too much for me. It took me out.
After watching The Rock, I would have liked to have seen Ed Harris play the role of the military bad guy.
The main dude or the secondary dude?
The guy who was in charge of the
Okay. Yeah.
The other guy.
Yeah, I could see that.
yeah. But
Like I said, to me, the villains in this movie were like super forgettable. I couldn't, like, Hans Gruber's so freaking memorable. And then when you put these guys on screen, you're just like,
I think
who are you?
this movie, it kind of all the terrorist guys, all the military guys, they suffer from stormtrooperitis.
Mm.
They can't hit the broadside of a
Well, they
barn
were using
with
blanks, remember?
with their guns. And yeah, it was just
Well, probably,
So-
probably the most disturbing scene in this movie for me is where so we have Colm Meaney playing a pilot of an international flight, and the colonel is basically he's demonstrating his power over the planes in the air, and he's bringing them in for a landing, and they change the ground level on the radar
By 200
all the
feet.
instruments, yeah. And so like this plane of like 300 people, basically like William Sadler just crashes this plane, and the look on his face as he's coming in is like giving them instructions where he knows that he's going to like kill all these people.
Yeah.
It's really freaking chilling. like the acting in that scene. And it's kind of funny because Bruce Willis, this is his least favorite Die Hard movie, even though I think that it should be number 5, but I think he's beyond caring at this point. And it was because of what you said. Is he's like, it felt too much like a retread of the original, just with like more stuff. And funny enough, this movie originally got an NC-17 because it was like so bloody. And so they actually had to go back and like scale back the violence in order to get that R rating. And I remember like when this movie was coming out in the 90s, and I was still too young to go see an R movie in the theater. But me and all my friends would get together and we'd be like, "Oh man, got NC-17. Can you believe that? That must be so intense."
Tell you the truth, I don't remember there being a ton of blood in this movie.
Well, they cut it back to avoid that rating.
Huh? What would have changed? I'm wondering. Just like, bloody snow.
There's the one scene where they just cut that dude's throat. The soldier guy.
Yeah. But they went harder in the third one. With
Maybe they
guy.
cut back on some of the blood squirts.
Maybe.
Well, by the time the third one came out, that's the mid 90s, and they were just like,
"Let's go for
it. Let's blood it up."
All right, you guys ready to do final thoughts on this movie?
For sure.
Yeah. First, Jude's like, "I'm done with this one." Go ahead, Jude. Why don't you go first?
This is just a really forgettable sequel for me.
Yeah.
And I said the same thing to Kadish when we were watching it. I was like, it just feels like they were just like, okay, here's everything that worked in the first one.
Yeah.
We're going to do that again, but make it bigger.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's lazy.
Yeah. I'm gonna echo Jude's thoughts. Vader, how about you?
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did like the old lady
with the taser.
With the taser.
That was pretty funny.
I remember I started busting up laughing when she said that, and I'm like, oh man, they could never do that now.
No, they definitely couldn't.
It'd offend somebody.
Kadish, why don't you give us some final thoughts? Are you going to defend this movie? Or are you?
Oh yeah, I'll defend it.
Okay, go ahead.
Like it's still an enjoyable movie. I mean, I think as far as sequels go, it's one of the better like sequels to like a franchise. This was the last movie that Joel Silver actually produced in the Die Hard franchise before handing it off to someone else, because him and his producing partner at the time had a big falling out, ironically over Bruce Willis, because one of the producers wanted to use Bruce Willis for one movie, and then Joel Silver used him for Hudson Hawk. And they had like this big falling out over it. And so I believe the studio paid them both out like close to like $1 million each in order to basically get the third movie going. So this was the last time that they kind of collaborated together. And the lack of John McTiernan, because he was shooting Hunt for October at the time, he couldn't come and do this movie. I think that definitely hurt it. I don't think Rennie Harlan is anywhere near as good of a filmmaker as John McTiernan is. And also, Jan de Bont not being the cinematographer on this also kind of made it feel and look a little bit different than the first one. I feel like the first one's visual style is kind of like so unique and instantly recognizable, that having like that slightly different, more like 90s kind of cinematography really kind of affected this one.
Yeah, it felt very claustrophobic too.
Yeah.
There were so many extras on this scene, and I think, I mean, it's an airport, so I can understand it. But there was moments in this movie where I was like, why are there so many? Like, it's a traffic jam in the middle of a parking lot. It was like super weird to me. I don't know. It felt off.
I feel like all of these Die Hard movies are about a half hour too long.
Really?
Yeah. Every single one of them.
But this movie, it's set in Christmas again.
Yeah.
And it's actually got snow this time. And it's kind of funny because like they kept, they set up to shoot in places like Denver where normally it would have snow. And while they were shooting it, it was unseasonably warm. So like they couldn't get any snow.
That's funny.
So like they had to actually manufacture most of the snow in this movie. And it was just like, it felt, more wintry, which I kind of like, because the first movie in LA, like LA doesn't get snow.
Yeah.
So, there was no snow in there, even though the first one feels more Christmassy, ironically enough. But again, in this movie, all the minor characters kind of get like a nice little kind of like subplot.
That main like antagonist cop that he has to keep dealing with, he's so loathsome. I just can't stand
played by
that
Dennis
dude.
Franz.
I just was like,
from NYPD Blue.
Basically the same character.
But there's also the janitor Marvin, who's basically like this version's Argyle.
Oh, yeah.
Like he just kind of shows up and helps out occasionally, and he's kind of like comic relief. And you've got Holly's story up in the airplane where, like, once again, she kind of, gives Thornburg his comeuppance.
Yep.
And, so like the action in this movie, I don't feel is as believable or as intense as the first one. But the set pieces are actually like pretty cool.
Oh, the airplane
Like,
blowing up in midair was cool.
Well, like fighting on the wing of the airplane,
Yeah.
and that one guy getting sucked into the jet engine.
this was kind of like, do you guys remember the Fast and Furious where they were chasing the airplane on the runway? And it was
How
just
could we forget?
just an endless runway. That's
Yeah.
kind of what this felt like.
R.I.P. Gal Gadot.
It was like, wow, this runway is like insanely long. They're just on it for like a good 10 minutes. And just they're trying to take off, but they can't. So they just have to drive straight for like an hour.
Yeah, like obviously the bad guys weren't as good in this one, but overall, like I still think that this movie is very enjoyable. And if you like the first movie, you're not going to dislike this movie.
No.
So I would give this one probably 3 stars out of 5.
I'd say 2. Just I'm not as much of a fan of it as you are, but yeah, 2 out of 5. What about you, Vader?
I think I'm right there with Kadish.
3?
It's like I said, it's not a great movie, but it's passable. It's fun enough to where you can, like I said earlier, it's a good way to kill an afternoon. And if you're not doing nothing else.
Jude, how many stars do you give this movie?
I'm super meh on this. I disagree with you because I do dislike this one, but I do like the first one. And like, I had never seen this before. This was a first watch for me. And when we first started watching it, Kadish was like, in some ways, I even kind of like it better. And I was like, don't say anything else. You're going to ruin it. And then I watched it. And I was just, honestly, I fell asleep a couple of times while I was watching it. I don't like it.
Okay.
So
All right.
I refuse to rate it.
Very good.
It gets no terrorists.
No
from
terrorists
me.
this time.
Girls.
All right, guys. Before we move on to the third and final movie in today's podcast, let's hear a quick word from our sponsors.
Whether you host a nightly dinner party for 2 or 5, keeping your eating and dining area clean helps keep your mind on the dinner party and not on the cleanup afterwards. Viva paper towels clean like cloth, trapping splatters and sauces that could become countertop stains or stuck on messes. And they're 2 times more durable when wet compared to the leading value brand. For an exceptional cloth-like paper towel, there's Viva. Visit vivatowels.com to soak up the clean feeling of home.
You know what this is?
A commercial?
Right, and you know what that means.
Time for a snack?
Wrong. I want you to do some heart-healthy exercise. Yes, you! Try some seated leg extensions right now. Just lift each leg up and extend it straight, 1 at a time, 6 to 8 times.
I can do that.
Yes, you can. Remember, every commercial is a chance to sneak in heart-healthy activity. Visit findexerciseanywhere.com and speak with your doctor to learn more about the risks of heart failure.
All right, guys, before we dive into the third and final movie of the podcast, real quick, if you guys want to get some merch from the Salty Nerd crew, go to saltynerdstore.com. There we have all of our cool designs that you can get either in t-shirts or hoodies or stickers or even face masks. If you're into that kind of thing, get it all at saltynerdstore.com. And any money that we get from that will, of course, go directly back into the podcast so that we can buy some new equipment and expand the brand and make some cool content for you. That's saltynerdstore.com. Check it out and get something cool in return.
Perfect for the holiday Christmas shopping.
Indeed it is, sir. All right, guys.
We could decorate our van for Christmas.
Oh my God, with your van.
Are we going to get some candy? To hand out?
We could put vampire teeth on the front of it. Vader, you love vampires.
Hey, kid, you want some candy?
We could have some of those metal balls that you hang on the bottom of the
Oh, God.
the rear tailpipe.
Yeah, the dangly ball
dangly
things.
balls.
No, our thing is going to be we only give out salted nuts.
That's so dirty.
I've got it all figured out, you guys.
This is a Jude project
Salty
for sure.
chocolate salty chocolate balls.
Salted chocolate balls.
Got to put them in your mouth and suck them. Yeah.
All right.
1995.
Yeah, the
Die
third.
Hard with a
The
Vengeance.
third and final
Better
movie
start this over.
today's podcast. I might have to. Third and final movie for today's podcast is Die Hard with a Vengeance, starring Bruce Willis and Iron Jeremy.
Iron Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
Jeremy Irons and Samuel L. Jackson. All right, Jude, why don't you tell us what this movie's all about?
All right. This one came out in 1995 with a budget of $90 million.
Goes up every time.
Yep.
Good for them.
What do you think it made at the box?
$300 million.
Vader?
280. Quit thumbing me up.
Oh, I'll thumb you up. Guess higher.
450.
Well,
$366 million.
nice. Close to 400?
This was the
Very
highest
close.
grossing movie of 1995.
In my opinion, my humble nerd opinion, this one's the best one.
Really? This one
love-
supersedes 1 for you.
It kind of does because I think they did a phenomenal job of making it more complicated, yet it all works and it's all paid off and it all makes sense. So I'm all for it. Like the first one was very simple and that's kind of what its charm was. It was like very basic, simple plot line, all in one building. This one, they did it bigger, but they also made it better.
It gets really convoluted, but they make it work.
Exactly.
It all comes together.
All right.
So Hans Gruber's brother has got John McClane fitted for a toe tag, and he'll do whatever it takes to get it tied. The New York City Police Department gets a call from a madman saying that he'll blow a bomb if John McClane doesn't go to Harlem with the opposite of a Black Lives Matter sign and stand on a corner.
That was very good.
Well put.
That was very well put.
That was very well put.
I was just going to say it.
So
don't.
Samuel Jackson is a store owner who can see where John McClane is standing. So he sees him and he knows that he's about to get murdered once people see him standing there with that sign. And he intercedes on his behalf. So this puts him on the radar of Peter Gruber. So now it's not just John McClane that has to jump through Gruber's hoops in retribution for his brother's death. And in the fashion of his dead brother, uses his brother's death as a ruse to steal $140 billion in gold bars.
Pinkies up, everybody. $1 billion. This movie to me is like a freaking masterpiece because if you are really paying attention, they set up so many awesome moments that comes much, much later in the movie. Just in like passing dialogue. Like there's a moment early on when they're talking to McClane and he's just coming over a hangover. He's broke up with Holly again. I'm glad they cut Holly out of this movie. So I'm glad they didn't go back to that.
She didn't agree to come back.
I'm good.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
I hate how bitchy they make her sound on the phone though.
They tried to bring her back and she was like, the last 2 movies I've just been sitting there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's not wrong.
I'm not coming back.
That's completely fair. Like you don't want to just be.
I also like the fact that they gave John McClane a hangover for the whole movie. Like the entire movie is just like, anybody got any aspirin?
Really bad freaking headache, man. It was perfect.
I told the nurse that I was having a headache and she didn't believe me and I'm having a very bad day.
But anyway,
you're gonna have to act crazy. Like
anyway,
Bellevue.
There's just in the first like 15 minutes of this movie, there's so much setup. Like they were in passing dialogue, they're talking about 14 dump trucks that get stolen, and it's just like this off the cuff thing.
They set up a ton of stuff.
And then the guy's badge number being his lottery ticket winner, like that's set up and paid off much later in the film. Like everything about this movie just is like so well crafted to me.
It's very clever.
That I'm into it. And I don't think I noticed these things first watch, but on returning and watching it again and again, and I'm like, oh man, they really did freaking take their time and like make this into a really well-rounded story with elements that get paid off later on. And it just, to me, it just sucks me in. Jeremy Irons is the only person I can think of that would be able to stand up to Alan Rickman's freaking Hans Gruber. Like if you get Hans Gruber and then you get freaking Simon Peter Gruber, like those are the 2 top tier dudes, and it makes sense to me that like that's who you would get to play a bad guy because freaking Jeremy Irons so badass. So to me, watching this movie, I think because they amped it up and made it bigger, but also did it in such a way that it was like really well written, I think it improves upon what was set up in the first movie.
And it holds up.
So this was the first Die Hard movie not to be based on a book. It was actually based off of an original screenplay, which was originally titled Simon Says. And the screenplay was written by Jonathan Hinesley. Now, if you don't know who Jonathan Hinesley is, he's the guy who wrote Armageddon. He's basically credited by Michael Bay as having written The Rock as well. So like he's got like a very good track record of writing really good action movies. And originally this was going to be, the Simon Says was going to be the sequel to a movie called Rapid Fire starring Brandon Lee. And this was going to be a Brandon Lee vehicle. But after Brandon Lee got killed on The Crow, it was kind of put in turnaround. And eventually John McTiernan, who came back to direct this installment of the franchise, so because he was doing a Hunt for October during the second one, he came on and he took Hinesley's script and basically ran with it. Because originally, Die Hard 3 was going to be set on a boat. And then Under Siege came out, kind of stole their thunder.
So did Speed 2.
Well, the script that they were going to use went on to become Speed 2.
Nice.
Called it.
Yeah. So basically what the first hour of this movie is it's about 90% of what was in the original Simon Says script. And then at the point where it's revealed that Simon Gruber is basically trying to rob the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, it goes in an entirely different direction. And, I'm not as high on this movie as you are, Alex. Like, I still think the first one's the best one. But this movie, like when I was rewatching it with Jude, I enjoyed it much more than when I saw it in the theater. And I think it was because I think the first hour is very strong. But once it becomes another heist movie, I felt like it was just like, John McCain was just repeating himself. So I would have liked to have seen it more of like a one-on-one of John McClane versus, Simon. And I would have liked to have seen more of this, like running around the city trying to disarm these bombs, because that was unique and original. And I felt like it, like halfway through, it kind of switched back to a more formulaic Die Hard type movie.
I want to talk about this bomb real quick. And then there's a moment that I never realized until I was prepping for this podcast, that this movie does something really clever. So the bomb that Simon is using to blow up around the town is this like new chemical bomb that mixes two components, kind of like an epoxy. And then once they mix, they become explosive. And then it's like super powerful, right? Early on in the movie, the police officers find out what this chemical is, and they do a little bit of investigating, and they find out like, oh, this chemical, there was about 2,000 pounds of it stolen like a week ago or whatever. And that's where he got it from. And they're trying to like trace who has it. And later on in the movie, Simon says that he has 2,400 pounds in a school. And immediately, if you were like super paying attention to the movie, you should be like, wait, he has more than what was said was stolen. So that if you're like, again, I'm not going to say that I figured it out, because it wasn't until I watched it like for the fourth time that I was like, oh, wait a second. Like,
wait one goddamn math minute.
That's a fake bomb, because there's no way they can put 2,400 pounds if they only have 2,000, and they already used some a minute ago to blow up the train. So it was like another one of those things that really paid off to me. And I was like, that's so freaking cool. Cause like it's fake, and it's fake, but if you're not paying attention, and if you miss that little bit of dialogue, the whole like hunting down the bomb inside the school is very intense.
I guess I missed it.
You missed it? Is it cool now that I told you what happened?
No, now I just feel stupid. I quit. I'm leaving.
Another thing that this movie kind of strays from the formula of one man versus an army that the first two kind of used. In this one, it's actually more of a buddy cop film, because you have the introduction of Zeus, who's Samuel L. Jackson's character. Yeah. And it's kind of funny because Sam Jackson said he based the look of Zeus on Malcolm X.
I was going to say.
Yeah, he's basically kind of playing Malcolm X.
Yeah.
But I remember when this came out, like this was just like, I think Pulp Fiction had come out like a year earlier.
There's several Pulp Fiction references. Yeah. In this movie.
And like both Bruce Willis and Sam Jackson were kind of seeing like a big kind of upswing in their career, especially Bruce Willis, because, him and John Travolta got like a huge bump from Pulp Fiction. And for a long time, like before this movie, Bruce Willis's career was like dead. Like nobody wanted to cast him. He had done like a whole bunch of flops. And this was like after, he kind of got a resurgence from Pulp Fiction, he kind of went back to the well of the movies that were his hits. And this was like, the Die Hard movie that came out, and Sam Jackson and Bruce Willis were in it, and they were coming off of Pulp Fiction. So there was a lot of interest in this movie going into it. And there was a lot riding on it for Bruce Willis, because this was like his comeback film in a sense. This was the thing that brought him back up to A-list level. And so he had a lot riding on it, and him bringing in Samuel L. Jackson to play off of, I think, was a masterstroke, because Sam Jackson really makes this movie more unique than the other two Die Hards were.
Yeah, for sure. He adds a whole new element that I think only Sam Jackson would be able to add to this movie. Yeah. Jude, you and I were talking before we started about this podcast, or about this movie. Do you love it as much as I do, or where are you at on this one?
For me, the order of goodness goes 1, 3, then 2.
Okay.
I think for you said it was 3, 1, 2.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I think it's a great movie.
Yeah. What about it that you enjoy so much? Is it?
I love the way that things just kind of come together. I think it's very smartly written. I think it's very clever. I think the story is different enough and also same enough for me to like invest in. So like I'm always talking about like whether or not I want to invest in something for me to be able to enjoy it. So for me, it does. Like bringing Hans Gruber's brother back, I think was great. And it tied the first one to this one, and then making it different enough. And then also with the heist, I was like, oh, that's such a Gruber thing to do.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I just like it. I think it's great. And I love the quips back and forth between like Samuel Jackson and Bruce Willis. Yeah.
I was just going to ask how you felt about
And
their
I love
dynamic.
the riddles.
Oh, yeah.
Do you guys recognize the female cop with the bad perm, the blonde lady?
No, not off the top of my head. Who is she?
So is that
Wait. I just want to list off a couple of other things that she's in and see if you get it.
Oh, okay.
Clue. Spencer Confidential.
Spencer Confidential?
Wayne's World.
No, I'm lost.
It's Colleen Camp.
Yeah, Colleen Camp, who played the maid Yvette in Clue.
Oh, wow.
And, she was the secretary in Spencer Confidential.
And then she was
okay.
she was the arcade guy's wife in Wayne's World.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
But
Right
she had put on a bunch of weight by the time Spencer Confidential came around.
Well, it was like 100 years later.
Anyway.
But this guy in the glasses on the right.
The bomb diffuser. We got to explain who we're talking about.
Not the bomb diffuser. The guy whose badge number he always plays the lottery with.
6991?
So he was in the first Die Hard.
Was he?
Yeah, he was the guy who was giving medical attention to Powell's character after he got in the car crash from when John McCain shot up the car.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because like he looks very different in this movie, but he's playing a different character, but it's the same actor.
Oh, that's cool.
So like if you're watching for him in the first movie, you're just like, what's he doing in this movie?
Yeah.
Did he transfer to New York too?
Did we talk about why the badge number mattered? Because that was one of my favorite moments.
You mentioned that like he always plays the lottery, and every cop always plays their badge number, and so he specifically states what his badge number is in the opening scene.
And that's like the first 10, 15 minutes and then later on when McCain. Why do I keep saying that? That's so weird. McCain figures out that they're actually going on a heist at the federal bank. He goes in there and he sees one of the henchmen, and he has the badge on
because he killed the cop.
And McClane figures it out, and he's like, oh, he's in the elevator. It's a cool elevator scene too, a cool little action fight scene. Kind of reminds me of the one from Captain America.
Yeah.
Elevator fights.
Yeah. And he just blows everybody away. But
every
cool
Die Hard
payoff.
has a important scene that happens in an elevator. Every single movie.
I guess
Die Hard franchise.
I guess that's true. Even the later ones?
Yep.
4 and 5?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. That's good. Kadish, what about you? Why are you not as enthralled with this movie? Because as far as like a writing standard goes, I feel like this one would be stronger than the first.
Yeah, how can you love the second one but not this one?
Because this one kind of strays from the formula a little bit. Like I said, it's more of a buddy cop story than it is like a one man versus many story.
But Sam Jackson's just a store owner. He's not a cop.
I'm not saying that it's not good. I'm just saying that it's straying from the formula. It's also, it takes place over an entire city as opposed to being in a confined location, which
I kind of like that. Did you not?
I like I said, it's not a bad thing, but it's not Die Hard.
Okay.
Like Die Hard in a nutshell is in a enclosed area that, you have to fight in, and there's no escaping it. So this didn't feel like a Die Hard movie to me.
Okay.
It's a good action movie, don't get me wrong. But overall, other than the fact that Bruce Willis is playing John McCain,
No, you're doing it.
other than the fact that Bruce Willis is playing John McClane in this movie, it literally could have been like any other character.
But now it's New York. So we got to show all of New York.
It is kind of cool that he's back in his original jurisdiction.
Yeah, I feel like that.
And this is the only movie where he's actually a cop in his own jurisdiction, like doing stuff. And we get to see his
his unit.
His
partners.
I love how salty he is in this movie too.
And at least the cops in this one are not quite as buffoonish as the other two.
Oh yeah, they're not buffoonish at all.
And he's suspended at the beginning of this movie, right?
Yeah, they ever say why he got suspended?
I don't like that he keeps kind of regressing, throughout these movies where basically like in this movie, he's a drunk. He's one step away from being a full blown alcoholic. His marriage with Holly has officially collapsed. He's kind of he's on his way out of the force when all this stuff is happening. So I don't like seeing like John McClane, on the downswing, and also it's kind of interesting because up to this point, he's been in two very widely publicized terrorist scenarios where he was the main hero. And then everyone in this movie, they're like, oh, that Nakatomi thing. Oh, I was on 60 Minutes and I was famous for 2 seconds. It's like, oh, come on, dude. You went through that twice. You would have been on every freaking, newspaper and news cycle.
Flash in the pan.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like
he'd have been a celebrity
in the news. No, I doubt that. In the news cycle.
Not with that attitude.
I could see maybe the Nakatomi thing kind of coming and going, but after the airport thing, the fact that he was in Nakatomi and that airport scenario, people would have known who he was.
So I'll have to disagree with you on the thing you said about it being in an enclosed environment and that kind of being where Die Hard should live as far as the story goes. I think if they would have reused that trope too many times, I think the franchise would have died off a long time ago.
Well, no,
is that how 4 and 5 are? Are they in an enclosed space?
No, they're more like 3. But again, that goes to the fact that they're breaking out of the formula. But you have other movies that use the Die Hard formula to great effect. You had Under Siege, you had Speed.
Dread was amazing. Dread was the same thing, basically. It's all locked down into one building. What is that, Raid? That foreign film Raid that everybody loves?
The Raid. So the Die Hard formula works. You could do it in a submarine. You could do it in another building. There's I actually had a pitch for a Die Hard movie when I was in Hollywood, where basically
Anybody else perk up when he said that? I want to read that.
It takes place in a prison, and John McCain is going to witness the execution of a guy that he put away a long time ago as a cop, and his daughter is there as a TV news reporter. And the guy who's getting executed basically orchestrates a takeover of the prison where there's a big riot, everyone breaks out, takes over the prison. And John McClane, now that he's old and he's got arthritis and all this other stuff, he escapes and he's loose in the prison, but they're everyone in the prison's trying to kill him.
Yeah.
And so that was my pitch for.
I'd go watch that.
That sounds pretty fun.
Yeah, I wanted to call it Die Hard Lockdown or something like that.
You hear that, Hollywood?
but that was kind of going back to the Die Hard formula where it was him against an army, him in an enclosed space. There's lots of different ideas that you could toss around that utilize that formula. I'm not saying that it was a mistake not to use that formula in this one because they'd used it twice before, so it kind of made sense to do something different. But I kind of miss it because that to me is Die Hard.
Okay, that's fair enough.
I get it, yeah.
Let's talk about Jeremy Irons in this movie.
Awesome.
We kind of talked about a little bit about him.
My second favorite Die Hard villain.
Yeah, he's right up there with Hans Gruber with Alan Rickman as far as a villain goes.
They had to go and get an Oscar winner.
Yeah,
to match the level of Alan Rickman.
Yes,
in the first one.
The voice. I mean, it's Jeremy Irons. You can't go wrong with this guy's voice over the phone.
They could be related.
Just taunting him over the phone with these riddles and him being so cool, calm, and collected, and just a cold killer. I loved it. But he has just as much class as his brother did, which I thought was really good.
Although he did say that his hair in this film looked like a midlife crisis.
Was it the bleach blonde or whatever? That was pretty funny.
He played Scar in The Lion King.
Oh my! I can't not hear that every time he talks. It's awesome.
He could be Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Did you like that?
I did. That was perfect casting.
I don't know.
How dare you?
Maybe.
What did you think about Jeremy Irons in this movie?
I love Jeremy Irons in this movie. He's
Yeah.
awesome. Perfect villain, man. He just plays good villains.
Yes, he does.
Although that one that he played in the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
I've never seen it. Was it bad?
Oh yeah. like if you could take away an Oscar for a performance,
dear God,
that would be the one.
Oh,
like he really hams it up in that movie. It's really
probably
over
just
the top.
having some fun.
he's a good Alfred too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He is. He's just a good actor. Everybody likes Jeremy Irons.
Yeah,
sure,
for sure.
So the guy who took over the producing duties on this, Vader, you'll probably appreciate this. His name is Andrew G. Vagina. And
why would I appreciate that?
Because you love vaginas.
You love vaginas. He basically kind of took over the franchise from this point on from Joel Silver, and under his, I guess, stewardship, I feel like the franchise has kind of progressively gotten worse, culminating in A Good Day to Die Hard, which was probably the worst movie in the franchise. To me, it's like that mythical fourth Indiana Jones movie.
That nobody talks
nobody
about.
talks about. or
I
acknowledges.
feel like I need to go watch the fourth and the fifth one now because those are probably the ones I would like way more than these.
You think so?
I don't know. I seem to like bad movies, so
The
Sometimes you
fourth
do.
one's a lot of fun. I like Justin Long in that one, and Timothy Olyphant plays the main bad guy.
Yeah,
He's really good in it, and it's just kind of like a fun entry into the series. Even though I don't think it's as good as any of the first three.
They do the classic thing where I think they go a little bit over the top with the action in that one.
Oh yeah,
like
definitely.
they're like throwing cars at helicopters and
Kevin
stuff.
Smith has a cameo because this was around the time that he was like working with Bruce Willis on
Cop Out, right?
On Cop Out, yeah. So like they had that dynamic in there, but the fifth one with Jai Courtney. Oh,
Go ahead, Jude.
A
What's
Good
up?
Day to Die Hard. Is that the fourth one?
that's the fifth one.
That's the fifth one. Okay, so the budget for that was $92 million, and it made $304 million. So it didn't even make as much as this one did.
it's still pretty good.
It shouldn't have even made that much because it was really bad.
But this one's got Sam Jackson and Jeremy.
Yeah, Sam Jackson. There's only a few actors in Hollywood that can say a good F-bomb, and I'm like, that was a good F-bomb. Like most people, when I see people use it all the time, I'm like, you don't deserve to use that word. Sam Jackson deserves to use that word.
However he wants.
Yes.
Yeah, he can also drop the N-bomb with impunity.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Nobody drops an F-bomb like Bruce Willis does either. I mean, they're both good at
They're
it.
pretty good.
It's
yeah.
funny in that scene in Harlem where Bruce Willis is wearing the sandwich board that has like the racial slur on it.
Yeah.
So like when they were shooting it, it was a blank board, and they put in that racial slur in CGI in post.
Smart.
But they also did it so that when this plays on like normal TV, they changed it for to be something like a little bit less offensive, so they could actually show it on broadcast.
Called the cops. Why? Because there's about to be a dead white man in the street. It was so good. Oh, and his little and Sam Jackson's relationship with the two young boys that come in early on when they're introducing. That reaction was freaking hilarious. They're like, "Where'd you get this from?" "Oh, I got it from what was that guy's name? Tom or something?
Yeah, Big T or
Big
something.
T or whatever.
Dirty T.
Yeah, and they're like, he's like, "Don't ever let people use you." And he goes on this monologue about like how to
Yeah.
live your life and like go to college. Why are you going to go to college?
Who do we don't want to help us?
Yeah, white people.
A lot of racial justice stuff.
It
in
was
this movie.
so funny.
But that youngest kid, he was played by the actor Aldous Hodge, who, like I've watched. It was funny when we were watching this. I was like, where do I know that kid from? And he's a full-grown man now.
Yeah.
And he was most recently in The Invisible Man. He played the cop who kind of helps the battered wife out.
Mm-hmm.
He was also in the show called Leverage. And he's been in like a lot of stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
And he has such a distinctive face that like I recognized him as a kid, but I was like, where do I know that guy from?
That's funny.
It was really bothering him.
It really was.
That's funny. The other thing to talk about the racial justice stuff that Sam Jackson is playing up in this movie. I thought it was funny because it could be seen as being over the top, but Bruce Willis's reaction to it, I think, is just as valid as the other side. Like the arguments that they're having back and forth is like legit arguments that people have.
It's like, you're the racist.
Yeah. Well, you don't like me because I'm white. Yeah. He's like, I never did anything to you, dude. Like, why do you hate me?
Sam Jackson has a very Malcolm X look throughout the whole movie too, with the white shirt, and the glasses.
It works. I think the dynamic works really well, and it skates that line of like offensive yet truthful all at the same time. Mm-hmm. I think it was perfectly done. Does anybody want to mention anything else about this movie? Kadish, you have any other fun facts?
I really like the blonde German lady.
Yeah,
she's a pop singer.
She's a savage.
She's the Carl of this one.
Yes,
she was kind of hot too.
She was kind of hot. Yeah, there was the one scene that I always think of when we're talking about her is when she comes in through the back door of the vault after she crashes through the wall. She comes in and she just freaking savagely murders this cop.
Yeah.
She just slices him up.
Slice and dice. And Jeremy Irons has to come over. He's like, I think he's dead.
Yeah.
I also hated how that cop that she killed, like he's just like shooting willy-nilly, screaming like the whole time, like he's doing his last stand and like nobody's down at the end of that hall. He's just like shooting at nothing.
Yeah, he's just trying to intimidate them. I need backup. He's just shooting down the hallway and then she just sneaks up on him.
Trust me, I know what I'm doing. Not even God knows what you're doing.
So many memorable lines in this one too, and they're talking about the Pulp Fiction references. There's one line where McCain's like, "Man, McClane was just like, man, I was just on my way to a good hangover, smoking cigarettes and watching Captain Kangaroo," and I'm like, "Oh, that's Pulp Fiction." Good movie.
So the fun fact, the screenwriter of this movie, Jonathan Hinesley, he was actually detained by the FBI because they wanted to know like how he knew so much about the Federal Reserve security measures. Because apparently, like, it was like super accurate.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of scary.
And the FBI looked at it as like a security risk, and so like they detained him, and they were like, how do you know this stuff? And he's like, I read an article in the New York Times.
Nice.
It's like, why don't you go to detain them? It also, like the second one, it got an NC-17 rating originally, and so they had to go back and re-edit it to tone it down.
But just for violence?
I think it might have also been for language.
Oh yeah,
okay.
These movies are very sweary.
Yeah, they are.
A lot more F-bombs in this one.
Yeah, but they had to go back and try to get that R-rated rating. And it's kind of funny because the fourth movie in the franchise is actually PG-13, I believe. And they were trying to open it
one with
up.
Justin Long.
Yeah, they were trying to open it up for like a broader audience, and that's always a mistake with these movies, in my opinion.
For sure.
Yeah. It's like trying to make a PG-13 Predator movie. It just doesn't work, man.
But this movie actually had a different ending than the one that we have in the final edit. Basically, the alternate ending has Simon Gruber getting away, and like his team like escapes with the gold, and John McCain is blamed for it, and he gets disgraced. He gets kicked off the force, and John McCain goes and hunts him down in Europe based off of the number on that aspirin bottle. At the end.
Yeah.
And they have a game of John Says, where he tracks down.
That's a whole other
Simon
movie.
Gruber.
Yeah, that sounds like a fun.
Well,
that should be Die Hard 4.
Well,
right there.
they have like a little conversation. So like John McCain corners Simon Gruber in his like office, which is this like very decadent European,
Of course.
all mahogany and leather bound books type office. And John McCain sets down a rocket launcher on the desk. And it's one of these like double, barreled rocket launchers. And so he like spins it, and he's like, wherever it lands, if you pull the trigger, you could kill me, or if I pull the trigger, I could kill
He's
you.
playing Russian roulette with the guy?
With a rocket launcher.
That's crazy.
And so like, like there's this whole kind of battle of wits. It's almost like that scene from Princess Bride where Vizzini and the Carrie Elway's character are trying to drink the poison
The
wine.
Man in Black.
Yeah. And basically like it ends with like Jeremy Irons killing himself. And
So I can clearly not choose the rocket launcher in front of me.
and John McClane basically goes off a broken man, but having like gotten his revenge.
Well, that sounds weird.
And yeah, basically the studio.
Where did you read this at?
Well, you can see the ending on the DVD.
Oh, it's got like an extra thing?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the studio was like, this is too dark. We don't want to take the character in this direction. And so like they went back and reshot the ending that we got in this movie.
I thought the ending we got was kind of abrupt.
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, that's because it was tacked on at the very last minute.
You can tell.
Like this was one of those movies where like they had all the printings done like a day before it was set to release. So it was like right up to the last minute that they were like, doing stuff with this movie.
Real quick, who's everybody's favorite character in this movie? Jude.
Come back to me. Let me think about it.
Anybody else ready? I'm going to say the construction worker truck driver.
That was going to be mine.
I love that guy.
The guy who's just filled with useless information.
Yes. He's awesome. He made me so happy when I watch him. And I wonder.
Yeah, these tunnels were initially commissioned back in 1923.
It just goes off. And John's just sitting there going like, yeah, all right, man. That's cool. Good. He's just going along with it.
Who's the 24th president? Chester A. Arthur. It's like, what? Chester A. Arthur. He's the 24th president. He was also a nominee for vice president in 1929.
Did you know that? No, I didn't know that, man. Thank you. It was such a great little like moment.
Yeah,
in this movie.
he was like the Argyle of this movie.
Yeah, I dug it. I dug that
I
one.
also like the guy who disarms the bombs.
Yes, he was cool too.
And it's kind of funny because, so around the time that this movie came out, we had the Oklahoma City bombing.
Mm-hmm.
And so like a lot of people were very like quote unquote sensitive about bombings.
Yeah.
And this movie's all about bombings.
Bombing a school, no less.
Yeah. So like a lot of, there was a lot of pressure on them to like cut out a lot of the bombs blowing up. And John McCain was just like, no, like in 20 years, nobody's going to care.
Yeah.
And in this movie, so like when the bomb guy finds the bomb at the school and he's trying to disarm it, he punctures one of like the tanks, and all this red liquid starts spraying on him. And he's getting it all over his face, and he tastes it, and he's like, pancake syrup? And originally in the theatrical cut, it was corn syrup. But because of the the backlash against using high fructose corn syrup and everything.
Oh,
The studio
come on.
changed it
Oh my God.
in ADR to say pancake syrup instead.
That's stupid.
That is so stupid.
Yeah. I mean, that's Hollywood for you. They're very reactionary.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
I thought when they said that, I was like, that's weird. That doesn't look like pancake syrup.
Too
Red.
yeah. All right. Final thoughts on Die Hard with a Vengeance. Jude, what do you got for final thoughts?
It's a good little flick.
Right on.
Good little flick.
Matt Vader, how about you?
Another fun movie. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Right on.
And it's got Sam Jackson and Jeremy Irons and Bruce Willis. Can't go wrong there.
Yeah.
And, it was fun.
Right on.
I give it
time.
3 out of 4 riddles. Or
Nice.
3 out of 5 riddles.
I think 3 out of 5 is
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, this is like a 4.5 out of 5.
I mean, it goes 1, 3, 2 for me as well,
okay.
as far as these movies go.
Fair enough.
I really wish they had called this Die Hard 3, Die Hard with a Vengeance here.
What?
What?
Just for consistency's sake.
The ER. He's adding an ER to the end of it because it was Die Harder.
Oh,
And then
okay.
it doesn't make any sense. It's a Kadish joke.
Die Harder with more of a vengeance.
There you go.
It should have just
That's
been
better.
Die Hardest.
Die Hardest.
That would be good.
It's good.
Die Hard, try harder.
Yeah. I give this a 4.5 out of 5. I think it's fantastic. And it's right. Like when I say it's better than the first one, it's not by much. It's just they're both like right there for me.
You like this one better than Die Hard?
Yeah, I do. I think it's mostly because of just how complicated everything is, but also how they all made it all work. Like I said.
That's like saying Jedi is better than Empire.
No, that is not at all what that's like.
It is. It's exactly what it's like.
Vader thrown down the gauntlet.
Mom, Dad, please don't fight.
All right. All right, guys, that's it for today's podcast.
What about me?
Oh, I'm sorry.
But we know you like it.
Yeah, go ahead.
What
Final
about
thoughts.
you?
Final thoughts on Die Hard with a Vengeance,
Yeah,
Kadish.
so I'm with Vader and Jude on this. It goes 1, 3, 2 for me. And I would give this one 3.5 stars. It's definitely one of the stronger entries in the entire franchise, but it does not beat the first one.
All right. I guess I'm die on this
I
hill
didn't
then.
know we were adding half stars.
Oh, do you want to change your number?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
I would like to
Be informed?
I would like to be
Alex
informed
literally
next
said
time.
4.5 stars. So,
I was the first one to add half stars.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, you guys seem to have talked about it earlier today.
No, we're just on the same wavelength, I guess.
Oh,
what
that
about-
side of the table
Yeah,
is
it's the
linked
side
up.
of the table.
This side of the table is linked up too.
What about 3/4 stars
no.
or quarter stars?
Seems a bit excessive.
Doesn't
Come
work.
on, Vader.
If there's an
Five
addition
and
of a
3/8
quarter
stars.
star, I would like for there to be an email about it.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you have half stars, you're basically using the scale of 1 to 10, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
And if you use quarter stars, you're 1 to 20. Is that right? Yeah.
Vader with the math.
Yeah. Vader with the math.
That never happens. He can barely read.
That's not true. He can read. He just chooses not to.
That's right. It's boring.
No one really knows.
Can't see anything. I need pictures, man.
All right, guys, that's it for today's podcast. Thank you for listening. If you would like to support this podcast, go to saltynerdclub.com and join our Patreon and help support us making awesome content for you and get exclusive content like pictures and podcasts and blooper reels and all kinds of cool stuff. Also, you can go and buy some merch at saltynerdstore.com.
And if you just want to buy us a van, that's fine too.
Jude really wants a van, guys.
What's with the van?
I don't know, but
It'll be so cool. We'll get jackets.
I don't even like vans.
jackets too?
Yeah.
It'll be like the Mystery Machine.
Yeah, I'm not wrong.
Only with a salty nerd brand.
Yeah.
Only weirdos drive
Have
around
the
in
dog.
vans.
We'll give him Scooby snacks.
We'll solve mysteries.
We'll solve mysteries. Yeah.
All right, guys, you heard it here first. Join the Patreon to buy Jude a van.
I don't want a van. Only weirdos and Mormons drive around in vans.
Yeah. We'll solve mysteries like how could anyone not like Goonies?
All right, guys, signing off around the
Gotta
table. Jude, where can they find you on the socials?
You can find me at I am Jude Juju on Instagram and Twitter.
Right on. Thank you. And Matthew Kadish. Sorry.
At Matthew Kadish, Kadish, at Twitter and Parler, and kadishbooks.com over on Amazon.
Where can they read your pitch for Die Hard?
In this podcast.
Somebody's going to go steal that shit now.
Right?
Yeah.
But, well, they've had plenty of time because I pitched that like decades ago, back when I lived in Hollywood.
Right
I
on.
bet you they'd buy it now. You should do it.
I should. You
Vader?
heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, there
This
you
is
go.
my copyright.
Yeah, copyrighted December 1st, 2020.
I'm going to go pitch it.
Go for it.
Vader, where can they find you?
At Matt Bader 74 on the places.
Right on. What do you got going on? You're doing some Twitch stuff, right?
Yeah, doing some Twitch stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing, man.
Okay.
Vader never knows what he's doing.
Playing some World of Warcraft right now.
Right on. All right, everybody. Have a great night. Talk to you later.
You know what this is?
A commercial?
Right, and you know what that means.
Time for a snack?
Wrong. I want you to do some heart-healthy exercise. Yes, you! Try some seated leg extensions right now. Just lift each leg up and extend it straight, one at a time, 6 to 8 times.
I can do that.
Yes, you can. Remember, every commercial is a chance to sneak in heart-healthy activity. Visit findexerciseanywhere.com and speak with your doctor to learn more about the risks of heart failure.
Amazon Prime members now get free grocery delivery with a minimum order. You'll get your groceries with 2-hour delivery. So in that time, you can finally figure out where the biblioteca is, learn how to play the acoustic guitar, and I guess get a puka shell necklace. Do a makeup tutorial, but realize halfway contouring is hard, and you're beautiful just as you are. Whatever it is you're doing with your time, your shopper will be carefully picking out your favorite organic meats, produce, dairy, and snacks while providing contactless delivery to your door. Free 2-hour grocery delivery, now with Prime.